On today's Locked On Jayhawks, 3 more commitments for KU football, a couple receivers in Jackson Cook and Tate Nagy, and a safety and Darrion Jones. We're talking about what it means, and KU with Lance Leipold continuing to excel on the recruiting trail.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, and you can find our show with Locked On Jayhawks anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we're talking KU football adding 3 more commitments over this past weekend from Friday through Sunday. They got a couple of receivers. They added a safety. In total, 14 commits now in the class of 2025, which will break down that class of 2025. We'll talk about the future at each positions they added with receiver and safety, and overall the job that Lance Leipold has done in the recruiting game, not just this year, but overall in his time at Kansas, and how it's been very impressive, especially compared to some of his predecessors in Lawrence. First, before we get into any of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. So we're going to start with who KU added, the commitments that they gathered for the class of 2025, and a little bit of scouting reports on the 3 players. Let's start with Jackson Cook, because you have Jackson Cook, Tate Nagy, and Darrion Jones, 3 players. So Cook is a 6'1", 180-pound wide receiver. He is from Snellville, Georgia, and all 3 of these commits are class of 2025. From South Gwinnett High School, he eventually, it sounds like it was between Kansas and UConn, ended up choosing Kansas over UConn. A couple commits from KU, or for KU, I should say, from the Peach State now. You have Jackson Cook here. You added the linebacker last week. Look out, Kirby Smart. Lance Leipold's a coming in your own backyard. But no, in all reality, Cook, an 85 graded 3-star on 24/7 Sports. He has a 5.5 rating at Rivals, which Rivals works on a scale of it's like 5.1 to 6.2. Their 3-star ranges are 5.5 through 5.7. So that means he's a lower end of the 3-star, but still 3-star there. 77 graded on ESPN. He is unranked with On3. Total it all up, top 1,500 nationally. He is a top 200 receiver when you look at the 24/7 Sports composite for Jackson Cook. And somebody who I think probably has a lot of potential in terms of the athleticism that he kind of brings to the table, but you didn't see it maybe in the unrealized stats. So in 2023, he caught 13 passes. That's it, for 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously good yardage based on the receptions there. This is a potential play, and, keep in mind that was as a junior. As a senior this next season, he could end up with 800 receiving yards. You don't totally know. He ran an 11.33 in the 100-yard dash, according to his player profile on 24/7 Sports. At a comparison, Savion Morrison, who's a fast player for KU, but probably not one of the 5 fastest, he was like 10.7 in high school. So faster there, but apparently there was a clocked 4.47 40-yard dash for Cook, which that would tell you he is pretty fast, especially if that was just as a junior in high school, which means, you're growing, you're getting faster, you're getting more muscular as you become a senior in high school, as you go through college for a few years, right? There's no reason that couldn't get down to like 4.4, and Morrison's like a 4.52 40-yard dash guy. So maybe that means Cook is more of your fast guy in that first 40, 50 yards. Morrison has a little bit more acceleration there. And he's at, 6'1", 6'2". That's a good size for a receiver. If you're a good size for a receiver and you're running around 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, like that's going to be good enough to have kind of enough athleticism that you need to be a good Power 5 player. Overall, not too much tape because of those lack of catches. He showed some breakaway speed in some of the stuff that was on there. Showed some good fight, I thought, in going for blocks in the run game. Looked like that was something he was very interested in doing. He had a few nice run routes, but it's hard to take too much from the limited opportunities or notable plays, or feel like you had a huge route tree, because a lot of the routes that you saw, I think there was like one out route on the big highlight profile, but the rest, it was all like bubble screens or like either a slant or a post, which basically is, sort of the same thing, just different kind of depth and yardage there. So what does that mean? Does that mean that those are just his fortes and he doesn't have a full route tree and that'll be something that he has to learn at KU? Does it just mean he hasn't got to show it all yet because maybe they had other players that were seniors on the team or something that they were going to more than him? And with his athleticism and speed and everything, there's more untapped potential here. I'm sure more is going to come as a senior. And that's, I think, the idea here for KU. You get a bit of a diamond in the rough because when you're Kansas, you don't have the luxury all the time to wait. Sometimes you're going to swing and miss. Sometimes you're going to bring kids in who you're like, I think they're set up for a big year as a senior in high school, and that doesn't happen. And they end up, not maybe being good enough for you once you get to college. Other times you swing on that and it ends up hitting in a real big way. And those players end up breaking out to some degree and become even better than when you got them to commit back in the summer. And then you have the loyalty card of, they were on me before, I really blew up in my recruiting. So that's Cook. The next guy is Darrion Jones. He's a 6'2", some places 6'3", 175-pound safety from Cape Coral, Florida. He chose Kansas over Georgia Tech, Illinois, and others. He even last year, it sounds like his recruiting kind of blew up last year when he was, I guess, going into his junior year. Got offers from Florida State, Miami, Ole Miss. Things seem to slow a bit there. So, I don't know what that means from that kind of slowing down, but it does show that clearly there is some opportunity there in what you got with potential. He's an 86 graded 3-star on 24/7 Sports, so one spot ahead of Jackson Cook there, unrated on the other 3 sites. But according to 24/7 Sports, he played linebacker, he played safety, and he played cornerback last year. A lot of the tape you watch actually has him lined up at corner. He loved to press people. He loved to jam people, which shows you that I guess he kind of likes to hit people. He had 34 tackles, 4 TFLs, 3 interceptions, pass breakup, and a sack in 8 games played. I don't know if he was injured or they just play less games there. I don't know what the situation is there. But because he was playing all those positions, it does make you wonder, could he be a future like Hawk player? Could he be a future Cinco player for KU in those packages? I think the idea based on kind of the talk around him is for him to be a safety. But maybe you keep that in the back of your mind that, if he ends up being, your third string safety one year, could you move him to Hawk to just get another good player on the field? But from what I watched on the film there, showed good toughness. I was really impressed with the toughness he seemed to show on film, showed pretty good speed. The biggest takeaway for the film for me was the guy is tough and loves to talk trash. And there was a lot of plays of him like knocking someone over and then kind of walking over him or talking trash or something like that. That can be a good thing on the defensive side of the ball. That can be a good thing at the safety position, right? You got to have a little bit of an edge to you. Normally you'd see nearly like 6'3" safeties and think, okay, that's like a big hitting safety, like your Cam Chancellors of the world, but I don't know how agile they're going to be. I don't know how great in coverage they're going to be, like TJ Ward. And obviously I talked about some of the toughness, but honestly, he looked to be more of like a coverage guy. And part of that, you saw him playing corner, seemed to have good ball skills out there. So maybe if you can get him to fill out the body a little bit more, fill out that 6'3" frame, he's got the coverage skills, kind of have the best of both worlds. Last commit they got, and this was on Sunday night, was Tate Nagy, who, yes, that is the son of Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is a 5'10". He's listed at 150 pounds on his 24/7 profile. Some other places have mentioned like 160 pounds. Either way, they'll be looking to add weight there. So he's a quarterback at Blue Valley West High School, in-state kid. Obviously good NFL ties for KU between Nagy and Ballard. He chose KU over Ball State, Kentucky, and some others. He's kind of somebody who's been blown up in the camp circuit, because in high school he's playing quarterback, and maybe from a potential of he could play quarterback at the collegiate level, but maybe it would be at a lower level, whether that be a group of 5 school or a Division II or something like that. But he'd been playing receiver in some of these camps and did well enough that he got offers from, Kentucky and KU. And I think he was at a TCU camp where he did really well. He's unrated on 3 of the 4 main sites, probably because they don't know what position he's listed as an athlete, but going to play wide receiver. Rivals, he's a 5.5 3-star. And the film doesn't really matter here because it's him playing quarterback. I guess you can watch the film and be like, okay, there's some of the speed, there's some of the athleticism, but it's a little bit different playing, receiver where you're getting off the line of scrimmage and you're trying to be agile and run good routes and stuff like that. Honestly, like we could probably talk cliches for days about being the son of a coach and having good work ethic and having good smarts and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's him. I don't know if those are just cliches, but typically a lot of times cliches are there because a lot of times they do end up being true. So, if he's a smart kid, and clearly I think there is something to that. The fact that he went from playing quarterback and then all of a sudden in these camps goes to receiver and gets some Power 5 offers probably shows you he's quick at picking things up. So if you're able to get him in your program, get some weight on him, you have some untapped potential. I know that's a word I keep using here, or a phrase I keep using here, but at receiver, because he hasn't been training there specifically, so he could end up being better there. Honestly, there's probably going to be a lot of like Luke Grimm comps for obvious reasons between the two of them. I don't know that that's the case. Like Grimm at high school, that dude was like a killer as a route runner and a lot of production at receiver at high school. The one that comes to mind for me, and I don't know this kid's path in high school, to be completely honest, so I don't know how well it resembles that, but Cade Warner, who was actually at Kansas State, who actually ended up being a very solid player, a very productive player for Kansas State. He was like 6'1". He was a bit of a bigger receiver, but he was the son of, Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator. And here he is, a quarterback. Kurt Warner is the father of Cade Warner. He was a quarterback, but Cade Warner was more of your, I guess, crafty white guy receiver, right? I think there could be something there with Nagy, but maybe a little less size and a little bit more quickness. Also, other quick news wanted to touch on. Kansas did make the final three for Muiz Tunkara with Arizona and Wisconsin. He's going to commit July 13th. Gabe Daniels is committing on June 29th. Sounds like KU versus Syracuse. So a couple other players to watch at the receiver position for KU. All right, let's continue on what this all means for the class of 2025 and plenty more on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as playoffs wind down, we have fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to right now. But FanDuel lets me keep going, sportsing, doing good with whatever you want, everything going on right now. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. I mean, there's still a lot going on for me. I'm a big baseball fan. I watch golf tournaments every weekend, so I was just watching the Travelers this past weekend. So you can get on that. We still got the Open coming up here in a few weeks. And you still have futures. We're getting to college football preseason magazine. That'll get you hyped up to bet on futures. All sorts of stuff you can get into. So, and with FanDuel in the summer, this summer, we're hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and Locked On Podcast Network sponsor. Continuing on here with thoughts on the class of 2025 and Lance Leipold overall, what he's done as a recruiter, and then we'll get to the future at the receiver and the safety positions, with those being the positions KU added over the weekend here. So 2025 now, KU has 14 commits and currently ranked 43rd on 24/7 Sports. Again, that's tough to judge right now because there's so many moving parts. KU is going to add a handful, possibly more of commits. Could be 2 more, could be 5 more. I don't know. They have a lot of scholarships to fill. Other schools are going to add a lot of players, a lot of commits, right? Like there's still so much to happen that it's tough to take that rank. As far as where these recruits rank, none of them cracked into the top 5. Jones is kind of middle pack from the recruiting rankings. Nagy still has to wait to get his rating. At least these are by the 24/7 Sports ratings. And then Cook is kind of toward that bottom tier right now. But again, some of this stuff can change too based on what they do as seniors in high school. But here's what's interesting here. 14 commits now for KU. Of the 14, 5 are graded 87 or higher on 24/7 Sports. This is just the 24/7 Sports, not the composite. But 5 of them are graded as an 87 or higher, right? There are different levels of 2-star, 3-star, 4-star recruits and stuff, right? So 87 or higher. 11 of the 14 are 86 or higher. And 13 of the 14 are 85 or higher. The only exception there is Nagy, who is unrated. He could come in as an 85 or an 86. I don't know. I would assume probably closer to being 85, being that, he does play quarterback and he's going to be asked to play receiver. There's just some unknowns there, right? So maybe he's an 83, 84, 85. I don't know. Regardless, 13 are 85 or higher. So you might be wondering, what does this all mean? Like, okay, I have no reference point for that. Well, glad you asked. By comparison, 2024, last year's class, had 17 commits in total, so 3 more than this one has. That one had 11 players of 87 or higher. They also had 2 of 90 or higher with Brinkley and Warner. And so I don't think it's going to live up to what last year's class was. But the point being, if you want to infuse the talent of 2025 and 2024, that's 16 players, 87 or higher. That's very, very impressive. They had 15 in last year's class of 86 or higher, 17 of the 85 or higher. So a lot of infused talent over these coming classes. But let's compare to past KU classes to be like, okay, how does this compare to some of those other teams, which obviously we know, KU's had a lot of shortcomings in football before Lance Leipold, so it's not going to be pretty, but I think it'll show you how big of a difference it is. Let's go back 10 years, right? That's just an easy round number to go back. 10 years, we go back to the class of 2015, which would have been the first class for David Beatty, I believe. That was 26 commits in that class, so a lot more than this one's probably going to have. Only 2 of the 26 were 87s. 1 more was an 86, and 1 more was an 85. So in total of the 26 commits KU had 10 years ago in the class of 2015, 4 were 85 or higher. Right now they have 13. Right now they have more players who are 87 or higher than they had 85 or higher, and that's with half the commits almost as they had 10 years ago. Okay, what if we go back 5 years ago? Go back to the class of 2020, which that would have been one of the Les Miles recruiting class. In fact, I think that would have been his final. I don't know. I guess he was still part of for the 2021 recruiting class. I don't know. Whatever. 5 years ago, 2020, KU had 28 commits. That's a lot of commits. 4 players were 87 or higher. So they had double the commits that this class of 2025 has, and they have 1 less player, 87 or higher. 8 were 86 or higher, which is 3 less than this class, and 11 were 85 or higher. So again, double the commits, 2 less players total, 85 or higher. And that actually 2020 class ended up being a good class, right? You're getting guys like Jalen Daniels and I think Devin Neal's in that class, and so I don't know. But in total, Kansas brought in 37 players, or will bring in, assuming these players stay committed, which that's a story in itself, right? You have to stay on these guys and make sure they stay committed. But as of right now, between the class of 2023, the class of 2024, and this current class of 2025, which still can be added to, again, player can decommit, but you could still add more players too. So the last 3 classes, including this class to come, under Lance Leipold's regime, 37 players have been graded at 86 or higher over these last 3 classes. 37, 86 or higher. During the David Beatty era, if we want to call it an era, I don't know, that might be a little strong. So 2015 through 2018, David Beatty's the coach, meaning that the classes, because he was fired before they signed the class of 2018, right? And then it's a whole new coach, whole new class. But that means David Beatty gets the class of 2015, 2016, and 2017, right? Over those 3 classes, KU signed a total of 10 players who were rated an 86 or higher on 24/7 Sports. 10 versus 37, when the 10 was also getting a lot more commits in terms of the players with less players in the transfer portal, and the 37 basically 4 times that mark, and you still have more room to add even more in 2025. You can see the difference, right? It's not just the difference of, Lance Leipold's added a few extra kids. He's added another handful of kids. 4 times the amount. So they are bringing in much more talent, and that doesn't even get before you get to the point where Lance Leipold and his staff are better at probably scouting, probably at finding diamonds in the rough, are better at development, are better at game management than those previous coaches that Kansas had. It is night and day, but the level of talent they are bringing in is just flabbergasting how much better and how much different it is, because even though Kansas has had obviously a lot of bad years during the 2010s and prior to Lance Leipold, they still had some dudes, right? You still had your Dorrance Armstrongs and Ben Heaney's and Mike Lee's and Daniel Wise's of the world, right? You still had your Steven Sims. There were still some good players, and this is just blowing out those years in terms of the amount of talent, which makes sense that Kansas is doing a lot better, but it also shows you arrow still pointed up for the future. All right, let's finish up here. Future at the positions that KU added here with receiver and safety on Locked On Jayhawks. First, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part's guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Finishing things up, what KU has added in the future at their positions now. So Cook and Nagy both going at receiver. Well, KU's receiver position this year, they're going to lose a lot. Lawrence Arnold, Quentin Skinner, Luke Grimm. Ever heard of them? They're all seniors. Trevor Wilson's also a redshirt senior, right? He's a rotational player who does play. So you look at next year's receiver core, Doug Emelian would be a senior. When I say next year, I'm referring to 2025. 2025, you'll have Doug Emelian as a senior. I'm confident he'll end up doing well. Keaton Quebec at that point would be a third-year player as a redshirt sophomore. I'm confident he can at least give you something there. Not a lot else left on the roster, right? You have Jared Sample right now as a redshirt freshman. Bryce Cahoon, who you brought in as like a walk-on, as a transfer from Syracuse. Not a lot there. So even for the freshmen, there's going to be an opportunity for playing time early, even if it's a rotational spot. I'm assuming they'll probably add a guy or two, maybe even three in the transfer portal at receiver to shore that position up a little bit more. But it's not just about, some of these guys are going to have an opportunity to come in right away and make an impact. But also, then you fast forward to 2026 when the receivers you're bringing in the class of 2025 will probably be redshirt freshmen at that point. Then Doug Emelian's also gone. Then if you bring in any transfer portal players for 2025 who are seniors, they're gone as well. So it is a very important receiver recruiting class for KU, especially because they didn't take any in the class before. And then the class before that, you already lost Saraz Buncombe to transfer. And, I don't know the full, fruits of your labor that you're going to see from that class, right? So I think it becomes kind of interesting about how they handle this. Already 2 commits, probably could add another one. Maybe could even add 2 more as far as the high school class. I mentioned those 2 guys. I don't know if both would end up coming to KU. I don't know that they'd want to do that. But with Daniels and Tunkara, probably end up with one of them, and then maybe you can see if you can bring in if there's another star receiver out there. Otherwise, it's in the portal from there. Now, as far as the safety position, so Jones comes in. Schmelzley, the athlete from the state of Kansas, he's probably going to be playing safety. So you're probably done there at the safety position. Again, the exception, just like receiver, unless you can. There's some superstars like, I want to commit there. You're going to make room for him. Same kind of thing here, right? Like after this season, OJ Burrows, Marvin Grant, both those guys graduate. They're both seniors. And then you go to 2025 when all the safeties you bring in the class of 2025 would be freshmen. Well, Devin Dye, Jalen Dye, they're going to both be seniors in 2025. So then they graduate. Then you get to 2026, and then you have guys like Taylor Davis and Mason Ellis and Caleb Purdy, Damani Maxon, guys who you would hope have emerged by then, or it could be some players in this freshman class. You're kind of layering things and taking care of stuff. So at this point in time, maybe you just continue to look to the line of scrimmage. Maybe another receiver seem to be set at like quarterback and running back at this point. You could always, like I said, use more players on the line of scrimmage at this point in time. So that's the future at those positions. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. We're going to be back for a Wednesday episode of the show, and we're going to switch gears and talk a little KU basketball. It's the offseason done now for KU hoops. We'll get to that on Wednesday's episode of the show. We'll have a Football Friday episode on Friday. So make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. We also are going to have a cool trivia event coming down at Johnny's Tavern. You can join a team, enter, win some stuff. So check that out on my social media as well, at D Johnson Radio. And we'll see you next time with LOJ.